On November 9, 1979, during one of the tensest decades of the Cold War, the United States came frighteningly close to believing that a full-scale nuclear attack was underway. For several minutes that morning, military commanders responsible for the nation's nuclear response were shown data indicating that hundreds of Soviet missiles were heading toward North America. Strategic bombers were prepared for launch, missile crews were alerted, communication channels lit up across the highest levels of U.S. defense. The threat was not real, but the systems designed to distinguish reality from catastrophe failed in a way that made nuclear war appear not just possible, but imminent. At the heart of the incident was NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, and the National Military Command Center, NMCC, at the Pentagon. These facilities formed the backbone of America's early warning system, integrating radar data, satellite feeds, and computer simulations to detect and respond to a Soviet nuclear strike. By 1979, both superpowers maintained thousands of nuclear weapons on high alert, operating under doctrines that assumed retaliation would occur within minutes of detecting an attack. This environment left almost no margin for error. Shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern Time, warning displays at the NMCC suddenly lit up with alarming data. Computer screens showed a massive Soviet missile launch, intercontinental ballistic missiles rising from launch sites inside the USSR, arcing toward the United States. Initial readouts suggested more than 200 incoming warheads. Standard procedures kicked in immediately. Duty officers notified senior commanders. The information was transmitted to Strategic Air Command, which controlled America's nuclear bomber force. Crews at bomber bases across the country were ordered to prepare aircraft for possible takeoff. Missile crews in underground silos received alerts indicating a potential escalation. Within moments, the scenario intensified. Updated data showed the number of incoming missiles increasing dramatically. Reports escalated from hundreds to over 2,000 warheads, implying an all-out first strike intended to decapitate U.S. defenses. This was the nightmare scenario Cold War planners had feared for decades. Yet even as the alarm spread, inconsistencies began to appear. Early warning radar systems designed to detect actual missile launches showed nothing. No objects were visible coming over the horizon. Satellite sensors that would normally detect the heat signatures of rocket launches reported no corroborating evidence. These discrepancies created confusion rather than immediate relief. The early warning system relied on multiple layers precisely because no single sensor was considered infallible. A disagreement between systems did not automatically mean the threat was false. It could also mean some sensors had failed. For several minutes, commanders were forced to consider the unthinkable question: was this a real attack or the prelude to a catastrophic mistake? The stakes could not have been higher. U.S. nuclear strategy depended on rapid response. If leadership waited too long and the attack was real, much of the arsenal could be destroyed before it could be used. If they responded too quickly and the attack was false, they could trigger a nuclear war themselves. As senior officers reviewed the data, restraint prevailed. The absence of confirmation from radar and satellite systems weighed heavily. No retaliatory launch orders were issued. Strategic bombers, though prepared, were not sent airborne. Within minutes, technicians traced the source of the alert. The cause was almost absurd in its simplicity. A training tape used to simulate a Soviet nuclear attack for exercises had been mistakenly loaded into an operational computer system at NORAD. The tape fed realistic-looking attack data into live command networks, and the system treated it as genuine. The computers did exactly what they were designed to do. They displayed the data without questioning its origin. Once the error was identified, the alert was canceled. Crews stood down. Bombers remained on the ground. The world moved on, largely unaware of how close it had come to disaster. No missiles had been launched, no hostile action had occurred, but the implications were chilling. This was not the first false alarm of the nuclear age, nor would it be the last. But the November 9, 1979 incident was especially dangerous because of its scale and realism. The simulated attack was massive, coordinated, and consistent enough to pass initial plausibility checks. It exposed how deeply automated systems had become embedded in decision-making, and how vulnerable they were to human error. In the aftermath, internal reviews revealed systemic weaknesses. Training and operational systems were insufficiently segregated. Fail-safes relied too heavily on human judgment under extreme time pressure. The assumption that multiple warning systems would always fail independently proved overly optimistic. The incident did not become widely publicized until years later. At the time, both the U.S. government and the military had strong incentives to minimize discussion of vulnerabilities in nuclear command and control systems. Public confidence in deterrence depended on the belief that such systems were robust and reliable. But among those who studied the event, the lesson was unmistakable. Nuclear war did not require malice or intent. It could begin with a mistake. The 1979 false alarm came during a period of already heightened tension. Arms control talks were fragile. NATO and Warsaw Pact forces conducted frequent exercises that sometimes mimicked real attack patterns. Mutual suspicion was baked into every signal. In such an environment, even a small technical failure could be misread as the opening move of war. That this incident ended without escalation owed less to technology than to human restraint. Officers who paused, questioned the data, and refused to act on incomplete information. The system did not save the world that morning. People did. In later years, similar incidents occurred on both sides of the Iron Curtain, including the well-documented 1983 Soviet false alarm involving satellite sensors. Together, these episodes revealed a sobering truth. The nuclear balance was far more fragile than public rhetoric suggested. November 9, 1979 passed without explosions or headlines. Yet for a brief window, nuclear war did not look hypothetical. It looked procedural. It looked like something that might happen not because leaders chose it, but because a machine said it was already happening. That is what made the incident so dangerous, and why it remains one of the most unsettling near misses of the Cold War.